Now we're in a new spot. What spot are we in? Sorry. We're at the other desk. You have another desk? Yeah, I've got like 30 desks. I actually have 3 desks in one room. This one's for the guys. Who are the guys? That'd be Kevin and Yako. Or Tevin and Jacoby. Doesn't really matter. So, Kevin recently found something that was long forgotten for me, and that is the person called Ben Tan. Now we know about Tan, the founder of man, but who is Ben Tan, and where did he go? We didn't talk about him in the Tantorum, the video, whatever the fuck I call that, Trade War, prelude to the Trade War series, which that's the whole fucking thing, right? We still gotta fucking do that. Oh, Lord have mercy. And I'm doing what now? Anyway, golly, I just realized all this stuff to do. We got things to do. I'm gonna still getting over it. Still trying to get over it. 2 weeks. Ben Tan. Where did he go? Who is he? Well, I think I have a simple answer for that, motherfucker. Ben Tan could be something to do with the Nueos, or the bearded pygmy. I thought the bearded pygmy were like, yes, they are people of mankind, essentially. They are descendant from the first people. What if Ben Tan went up there? Who was the revered king by the Hafel? Was it Suliyuma? Or is that who's king now? I can't remember. I'm wondering if Ben Tan does have something to do with the Hafel. Why is this important? Well, it's important because Book 2 starts. Well, it doesn't necessarily start. But Book 2 is going to take place in the Hafel Mountains. So things are going to happen up there. What's going to happen up there? I have a vague idea. Like I've written down. I plotted it. Actually, I have. I didn't realize I did. I did plot it. I don't know where it's at, but I did plot it. I have a vague idea of what's going to happen up there. How could I add this in? I'm going to have to search for the paper that says what my story is going to be in Book 2, because we have 2 moving elements. One that I'm like, how are we going to do this? Because last I knew, no one's been writing their stories, so I don't even know. I don't know what's going on with Vathia. I don't know what the hell his deal is, and where he's at, and what he's doing, and why he's doing it, and what his motivations are, and what's his story arc going to be, what's his character growth going to be, who are the allies he's going to meet along the way, what part of the story is he going to tell. I have no idea. And I don't like that I don't know that. So that's tough. When it comes to, what's their names? Fucking A. Alastra and his band or whatever. I'm just gonna call him that. Pathfinder and fucking, not Hob, but it was something like that. It was ridiculous. They are, I don't even know. I have no clue. You know, sometimes shit just hits you. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just go like, holy fuck. Wait a minute. What the fuck am I doing? What is going on? Guys, we have a fucking book. That's weird. Well, I wrote book 1. I'm waiting on you guys to read it. I'm going to guarantee that no one's even picked it up yet. I don't know why. I know someone that's finished it already. And this guy is a teacher, and he teaches, like, he's an English teacher, so he reads a bunch of other people's shit, and he's already finished my book. I don't find excuses. So, you have no idea what's going to happen. So, what am I doing? Well, I would say I'm going to have to write out a lot of things in order to move forward. Because I don't know how to fix this. Like, we have a very ambitious story. But I'm afraid I've gone too far and I don't know who those characters are. Vathia and his people, and Alastra and his people. Because, you know, it was always my thing that I would try to say is, like, just write their backstory. Get them to the point where the book begins. That's not hard, you know. Fuck, I wrote a book, you know. And I am bad at writing. But I can do it. I don't know what to do with all this stuff. A lot of it's, it can be tough to write. It can be. But it's, you're telling a story of someone you want to tell a story of. You are trying to make this person, and you're trying to unravel who they are. So I don't know any advice besides how I do it, and for me it's just like I'm doing it right now. I've done it a bunch where I'll just sit down and I don't even know. I'm like, just put words on a paper. And I do. And it's just like painting or drawing. You start to see images, and alright, so put some structure into it. My thing is always, I start with some weird shit. Then I start noticing that there's a person, and oh, here, they might feel this way about this person. Let's put an idea saying that he used her for intel. I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, well, let's just do that. Yeah. And then we'll say she was just a pawn in this game. Though he himself, and then like, let's talk about him as a person. Well, he's not necessarily happy with what he had to do, but he's doing it for his family. And then I go from that and I start zooming in and tell the story of like, well, now we're in 1830s London. Okay, so he stole intel from her and her family. He used her as a pawn. I don't know why any of those things. See, like, I don't even know. I'm like, what the hell is any of this about? We have no idea. But we know where he's at. We know what his intentions were. We began the book where the big moment happens. Well, let's go back and let's tell a story of how we got there. All right. Well, if he lives in London, let's just let's make it the book though. He lives in geez, what's the name of that big city in Tantorum? He lives in Centrum, or Centronia, or whatever the huge city's called. All right, well, what's it like there? Not what each individual building's like. What's it like? I don't know. Centrum reminds me of the 1700s London. Okay, so let's just pretend we're there. Walking down cobbled streets, a lot of carriages going up and about, people frantically doing this and that. And then you start saying, okay, that's what it's like. Maybe he's going down one of those roads. Maybe he's shoving past a bunch of fucking people. Maybe he's doing that on the day of an election. Or on the day of some sort of celebration. or something. It doesn't have to be anything. It could just be just a normal day. Maybe there's going to be a big sports game or something on. I don't know. And he's getting word back to his father, who sent him on the mission in the first place. And his father, and then from that point, as he's going up to his father, let's talk about how he feels about him. I don't know. Maybe he's got a conflicted relationship with his father. Maybe he's always trying to please him, but he doesn't like the man. In fact, he hates him. In fact, he wants nothing better than to dismantle everything his father built up. But for some reason, he keeps finding himself doing whatever his father tells him to do. Well, now we know what his arc's going to be. He's going to have to break from his father. We also know that he has to, he had a relationship with this woman that he stole some information from, her prestigious family. Well, let's now we got something. And you just go until you can't anymore. And then from that point, you stop and say, well, I don't know. I got to the point where him and the dad are talking. Now we're talking about a trade war. I don't even know. And it's like, okay, that's a perfect place to stop. Go back to the beginning again. Reread it. Fine-tune it a little bit. Start taking notes along the way. Like, well, I noticed I said this here. I noticed, ooh, this is, maybe we'll explore that. And then you just kind of break it open. And then you go to a fucking board or something. And you start like writing everything down that you know. What do I know about the character? What do I know about the plot? What do I know about the setting? What do I know about the time in which it takes place? I guess that's considered the setting. I thought setting is more like a physical place, but all the setting. And the more you do that, the more you can add to it. And when you get lost, you go here. You find books. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by it's a portable one by Gibbon. Read a little bit of that. Just kind of like, oh, okay. Ooh, I like what the Huns and the Alani would naturally unbraid the flight of the Goths, who were not disposed to use the moderation of advantages of their fortune. The ancient jealousy of the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths could no longer be suspended. Like, wait a minute. Ooh, what if we had an Ostrogoth and a Visigoth thing going on? What if this takes place 200 years before the book? What if there were clans that were fighting inside of Centrum? Ooh, okay. Family ties. And then, you know what I'm saying? You just do that. And then you come back to it. And then you get lost, you go over here, and you say, like, well, here's another historical book by Diodorus Siculus. For the Phoenicians, it appears, were from ancient times clever men in making discoveries to their gain. And the Italians are equally clever in leaving no gain to anyone else. And say, well, what if there's the Skier people? Ooh, the Phoenicians. And they're trying to get inside of Centrum and the political system. And this is the thing that one family had, and maybe this family over here doesn't. And this is all some sort of political thing. See how a story's starting to unravel? You just have to do it. I think the hardest part is starting. That's the hardest part. You're sitting in front of however you write, if you're sitting in front of a pen and paper, a blank paper, a blank screen, or like if you're doing a typewriter, it's just sitting there, blank. And it's just saying, what are you going to say? And I think it's hard to think like, well, what's the fucking story about? I'll give a second example. This one will be for like Jacob. Okay, so we are, where's the map? Let's start easy. Let's just keep it real easy. We're in Quran. We are in the capital of Quran. We are so the book begins in 1647. It is 1312. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's go back and kind of check what's on the documents that you mentioned around the early 1300s. What's kind of going on? So you can kind of get a little bit of understanding of what's happening. And say, okay, well, there's a war that happened here, this happened, that happened. Okay, you can either run with those or write something that goes alongside it. The easier way would just be to say, well, I'm going to go with this event that happened. Okay, well, let's jump in that event. What happened in the 1300s to Quran? that Quran was involved in. Well, you haven't made that one yet, the Prelude to the Trade War series. So I'm going to make something up right now. Let's just say in 1313. Oh, you know what happened then? Wasn't that the invasion of Tanktoric forces? Well, okay. So you could either begin in the front lines or you can go in the back lines. And you could say, okay, Quran during this invasion. What were they doing? What kind of games were they playing? Were they funneling resources and money or supplies and of any description to the people fighting off these Torc forces? Were they secretly inviting these Torc forces because there's games to be played? You know, we're talking about that Man of Stone down there. Well, maybe he's doing something. Maybe he's kind of playing this really long con kind of game. You know, if the ambition of the South is in the eye of Vesemir, and that is to unite it, King Arthur style, and push out the Romans, or whoever's invading, well then here's our story. So let's make something up real quick. I'll show you how this can be so easy. We have all that in mind. It's what, 300 years before Vesemir's born? Well, let's give ourselves two options. Family line or someone totally separate. Let's go totally separate. He's not even remotely related to Vesemir. This new character, okay? His name is Pythian. And Pythian was a man who worked for, I forget how your, whatever it's called, your systems work. So I'm going to make some things up. He works for some sort of like petty lord, some baron, if you will, of some plot of land. And this baron isn't necessarily the best guy, but your character Pythian, he knows. He's like, you know, he's doing the best that he can for being an upstart. Because this baron got his name from this land when he killed this overlord who was a bastard of a fucking man. But we're slowly seeing this new baron kind of become that too. Now, Pythian, his true allegiance lies with this baron. For whatever reason, whatever. The baron saved his life, saved his family. Or, that could be the positive side. We can go negative and say the baron's holding him against his will, kind of holding his family above his head and the protection of his family. Like, well, I hate something to happen to them if you didn't do this. You go either way. Let's go the positive way. The baron, when he killed that overlord, saved Pythian's family. And he owes him. So he gave him his life. He says, I have a life debt with you. And this could be kind of echoing the whole, the handmen thing, right? This could be the origin of it, or no, the handman's been around longer than that. I don't know. Let's pretend it's the origin of it. How do we do that? Well, we access the idea of what a handman is, and we can kind of determine what his outcome will be. But let's say Pythian here is sent on a mission by this baron to unravel what he believes to be a conspiracy of this guy named, I don't know, let's look at one of my names over here, Cantauus, that's how you say it, Cantaeus. Okay, yeah, we'll say Cantaeus. Cantaeus is this other kind of rival lord of a land that lies beyond the valley of some fucking place. Hokea, I don't know. But he feels that he's a threat, and he's sending Pythian to infiltrate this other lord's kind of echelon of society, because this other lord isn't a petty lord, isn't in his little castle kind of dungy and dirty, kind of living as bad as the peasants, like, you know, this one guy is, this baron. This guy is regal. This guy comes from years and years of like wealth, and his land is prosperous and beautiful, and he looks at this baron as a small little thing. But the Baron knows something about this other lord. What did I say his name was? Cantius? 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 I don't know. Well, he knows something about him. Well, what would he know about him? Anything. Anything. He's a closeted homosexual. Or he's a religious zealot. Or, here you go, here's something. Maybe it has to do with the, oh my god, the Lycan shit. Maybe it has something to do with the, I forgot what you call them, the something of the owls or something? Clan of owls, or I don't know. Maybe this lord, this high lord, is a wolf hunter. Maybe this lord was given this land. Like, let's do something new. He was given that land from a Tantoric Dukan. It's a Dukan son or something. And they are fucking wolf hunters. Well, there's your threat. And so it's like, okay, and then you can just flip a coin if Pythian is a man that's got lycanthropy or not. I think it'd be more fun to say he doesn't. He's protecting the very thing that he isn't. You know, he's protecting the lycanthropy people. The Lycans, I forgot what you called them. And like, see how a story's unraveling? It's just making shit up. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm just throwing a bunch of things at a board. But you just sit there and you think that, and you just go and write. And just... And then he went here, then he went there, and you know the general outline. You know he's living here. You know who he's in, has friendships with. You know a little bit about his backstory. Divulge that in the first chapter. Talk about that. Talk about these things. You already know where he's going. And if you know the landscape, that should be easy. You know, like when I did my story, I didn't know the landscape. So that was hard. You know what I did? I skipped it. I left my space there. And I said, I'll come back to this when I can imagine the place. Sometimes you gotta do that. If you wanted to sit and fucking, I don't know, well then skip it. Who cares? Put a mental note there. Has conversation with Baron, possibly revealing this. Because I don't want to lose my momentum. Write that down and just go forward. And then he set out. It was the next day. And he made sure to pack this, and that. Like, you know what I mean? You just go. When you hit a blank spot, and you're like, I don't know. Just oh, I don't know. Just skip it. Let's go somewhere new. What's going to happen after that? Then when you run out of steam, you just reread it. And then just say, like, well, what's next? What do I do next? What can happen next? You know, there's so many... There's an unending road. There's an unending fucking road. There is, like, you could go any way. Like, they talk about a fork in the road. When you're a writer, when you're doing these things, there's a million of them. They're all ahead of you. You could take that whole story and flip it around. You could take that story and right up to the point where he goes off his mission, he gets fucking killed. And all of a sudden, the book goes into the eyes of this other character who killed Pythian. And then this guy was a spy the whole time. And now we get to go from this one. Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Right? You know, like you write over a story. I think we get hung up on what people want, but fuck them right now. Fuck them. Who cares what people want? When I wrote the first book, there was a long period where I was writing, thinking about people. But then I just decided to say, fuck them. Who cares if this doesn't make sense? Who cares if they won't understand this? Fuck them. You know, like, you can't write for them. You can only write for you. I'm saying all this because I really think you guys both can do this. And I'm showing you just how easy it really is. It's incredibly easy. Because all the time, so like for Jacob, he plays video games a lot. What does that mean? He's been exposed to a lot, a fuck ton of stories and characters. Wait a minute, you also like RPGs and shit? You're telling me you've exposed yourself to the idea of evolving a character and keeping in character? So you already know how to do this, is what you're saying. I think the thing that Jacob, you echoed was something about the not knowing how to make events along this line, if I remember correctly. Making events happen around the character and how they would navigate through it. But it's the same thing when you role play. You put yourself to points and you say, okay, Pythian is accosted on the road by a highwayman. This is super simple. He's been accosted on the road by a highwayman armed with a long rifle, and there might be a couple more bandits. So you say, okay, all right, so what would Pythian do? What does Pythian know? Well, Pythian knows that he's like 10 miles from a city, to the north where he's heading, to the southwest to where he's heading. It's 10 miles away. He knows there was nothing behind him for a long while, and he's about 6 miles out from a hamlet that he stopped in and gathered some supplies. Pythian knows he's got about a day's food on him because he didn't, plan for this. He kind of got a little lazy, and he also didn't get any sleep there. He thought he could just go to this next city and be done with his day. He also knows he's got about 1,300 shekels, I don't know, coins on him for diplomatic purposes. What does he do? You can do whatever you want there. You can get him, like, if you have seen Barry Lyndon. That very same thing happened to Barry Lyndon, but he was robbed, and he had to start over. You could do that. You could say, like, yeah, Pythian, like, was overwhelmed, and all his shit was stolen, and his horse, and he had to restart. He had to go look for money. He had to go to this next city and like, scratch together some money for his venture. And then maybe he gets caught up in some local intrigue or some local politics or some shit. Or you could say, no, Pythian's a resourceful guy. He will have judged the situation thusly, seen it coming, and now we have a really cool scene of him slowly killing these people with a cat and mouse thing. I don't know, something like that. You know what I mean? Same thing. It's just like you're role playing. You're just like, what do I do here? Who is he? What I did with Eris was I just looked at myself and I said, what would I do? And that's a lot of nothing most of the time. Wait till other people do things and then see if you can just kind of like go this way. It's so simple to do this. And I'm not saying it's simple, and if you don't find it simple, you're simple. I'm saying it's easier than you think it is. I'll talk about with Kevin. So Kevin, you really like, and I know Jacob does too, and so do I, but we're going to focus on this little thing. I know Kevin really likes history. History is what he jives with. That's kind of his bread and butter. You know a lot of elements of history, and that's shaped you a lot. And for you, I would say the story, if we're trying to talk about society, I think that's where Kevin he could do best. Kevin gets very mad about people not holding themselves accountable. People not living up to, like, people allowing shit to happen to them. And patriotism. And what is it to be a true American? What is it to be, these political elements? Well, I think you already know what happens if you made a character that felt the same way. Put yourself again in Centrum. Once again, we're in Centrum. You are, I don't remember necessarily your ranks, but a private who was enlisted. He signed up. It is the year, I don't know what was going on. Okay, the Valen campaign's about to kick off. And this private's like, I'm in, I'm going, I'm doing this, right? You can make up whatever reason. You could say he read pamphlets, and this is what they were saying it was actually about. And you could expose politics in that way. He picked up a paper. It could begin that way. Centurio, what would his name be? Let's just say Siculus. Siculus, holding the pamphlet in hand, reading it one last time, just to make sure it's what he really wanted to do. Right? And then you just go into what you know the rhetoric is. My lords, my gentlemen, my men, whatever, however they would greet. It is war. War with these kind of people. Blah, blah, blah. Here's what we think about the Valanders. Here's what we think about Lyria. We must defend the free peoples of the Valans against this Lyrian oppression. And I call on you, blah, blah, blah. Right? Just some generic shit. You know? He goes to the recruiting office. Guess what, man? Kevin, you know what that's like. You've done it. You just echo it. You echo his training. You can do it in small montage, kind of. I wouldn't call it a montage when you write, but you talk about it. Then all of a sudden, you thrust him on the front lines. Wherever you want, in Pacoa. And there's about to be an engagement. Okay, what happens? And if you're like, I don't know, well then just get a coin, get a dice, and say, one side they get ambushed, the other side it's a massive assault they're about to take part in, a giant movement to push them out of Pacoa. Bing! Flick it, catch it, and there's your answer. Oh, it's a massive movement. Well, Kevin knows a little bit about that kind of stuff. What would a private know? Let's go into that a little bit and just say, okay, well, this is what we're doing, I guess. Who's his buddy? His buddy's name is, I don't fucking know. Let me look around for a thing. His buddy's name's Jordan. But they call him Jor. I don't know. No, they call him Dan, because he fucking hates it. He's sick of it. He's like, dude, quit calling me fucking Dan. Alright, Dan was my father. And I'm Jordan. And that's his last name, by the way. Now, you can do whatever you want in that aspect. Super simple. You can keep going from that point. It's that easy. But yeah, you know, you could go on and on. It can be that easy to... What's holding you back? Well, what was holding me back? Well, laziness. Never completing anything. I know all three of us struggle with that. Just not completing something. I have a litany of shit around me and behind me that is not completed. I'll get to it, right? I mean, we all do it, right? Procrastinate. I don't know what it is that stops us from accomplishing things. Or why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have all this energy to do it. And you do whatever it is, and all of a sudden you don't anymore. I would say the thing they always echo about that kind of stuff is, you know, writing or creative anything, drawing, painting, Kevin making the dioramas. I think that's what they're called, or the scenes and stuff. I think it's easy to say in that creative endeavor of how inspiration hits and when it doesn't hit. It can be very easy to do that. But what they practice, the best of us, is doing it no matter what, as in not forcing it, but a writing exercise. Like I'm doing with a typewriter. Just a little writing prompt. I didn't know what I was writing and I went with it. I have a man named Gibbons is his last name, and he's part of the Pythian Knights, and he's just talking about his Knight Commander. I don't even know who this is or where this belongs, but we'll see. You know, I'm just doing it. It's just a writing prompt. It's to kind of sharpen the skills. It's going into the gym and lifting weights or doing some cardio. That's all it is. You know, this is a muscle that we have to work out. I think the modern world thinks it's so easy to go and exercise physically and stuff, and it's like, but when do we exercise our brains? When do we exercise our emotions or our thoughts or challenge our belief systems? you have to make it like that, and that can just help you become a better writer. And also realizing that as you write, you're trying to tell people something. Like you're trying to give them advice, or you're trying to put your opinion out there. You got to have an ego. You got to have somewhat of an ego about it, because the thing for me, I don't want to. In my mind, we're going this together. We're jumping aboard this train, and together we're going to go. It's throughout the years. I mean, how many years have you put into this book? Throughout the years, you've contributed so much, it's hard to undo it. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know how you could undo it. Like, how could I get to the point where I'm making the history of Tantorum? That was tough, because it was like starting from scratch. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, approach it, and there was a lot of hurdles in the way. And but I did do it because I cared about it. I cared that much about it, where I thought, I need to make sure I do this justice as best I can to tell the story of Tantorum as a Tantoric person. And it wasn't easy. I mean, you got to remember, like, meanwhile I'm working on my book. Meanwhile I'm trying to work on my own lore, and I'm trying to plot the next book, and I'm trying to just check my grammar or alone, which is enough, or to unravel the all the moving parts, from the Serpentine Order to the Ossook Society to the Aevans, all the way over in Dubois when we're talking about the Knights Chevalier, and we're talking about the Hot Society, and I'm trying to do that. And then at Trovia, like, I'm trying to keep everyone's motivations all straight in my head. But then it's like, okay, we're going to jump on Tantorum now. And I just kind of was, tried my best. I kind of don't think it did it justice to what it should have been. I really wish it was so Kevin talked about us getting together and creating something called the Power of Growing. Chapter 1, Power of Presence. Chapter 2, Power of Understanding. And he said he wants to do this. I already know he can do it. If you feel like you're not the storyteller guy, the day-to-day storytelling, but you come to me with this, means you have something to say. And you should fucking say it. You know what I mean? You want to talk about the power of growth, what it's like to be a man in this modern time, what the conflictions are, what society teaches us, what we understand about ourselves, blah, 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 whatever it may be. Okay, you can do it. Give yourself 30 minutes to an hour in your office by yourself, in front of whatever you have, pen and paper. Get yourself a laptop if you want to use it that way, if you'd rather type, and just write and say what you got to say, and then read it again and correct it and write and read it and correct it and write and read it. It's hard. It is incredibly hard. It's not easy, because none of us set out to be writers ever. I don't even think any of us are still setting out to do it. I'm not. I don't want to be a fucking writer. But, I mean, what are you going to do? we're doing what we're meant to do. And that's all that really matters. I know that you can do it. And I know Jacob can do it too. I know you guys are both well capable of doing that. I've read your work, and it's very good. As much as you don't think it is, I do. I really do. So, just a video for you guys to kind of see where we're all at on this. Read the book. I think you'll really like it. I really do. I know that maybe it seems long. It's not. It's no longer, look, watch. This is the Fellowship of the Ring. My book's shorter than this. You know what I mean? It's not, this is longer than my book by like 30,000 to 50,000 more words, I think. And it's not bad. You know? Read 2 pages a day. And you'll find that it's easier to read than you think. But that's all. Just wanted to kind of put that out there. See what happens.